This is Matthew Cratter from Trader University, and today I want to talk about the new digital dollar, which is certainly coming, and want to tell you what I think it's going to look like. Some people might call this government cryptocurrency. Some people might call it FedCoin. But I want you to know it's coming so you'll be able to prepare yourself and your family and your finances for it. If you're interested in learning how to make money in both bull and bear markets, or you just want to see what I'm trading or investing in, be sure to hit that subscribe button. So we just got recent news on August 14th, 2020, that the Federal Reserve, in particular the Federal Reserve Bank of Boston, is teaming up with MIT to look into and develop a cryptocurrency. Obviously, they're probably working with other groups as well, but this is interesting because it made it to the news. Now, what is this FedCoin or new government cryptocurrency going to look like? A lot of XRP crypto holders think that somehow XRP is going to take the place, but they are wrong about it. So I want to explain to you what I think this new US dollar is going to look like. Now, the first thing that has been really happening, there's been a lot of talk, especially if you read policy papers like I do, there's been a lot of talk about how to get deep interest rates and bring them to the United States. Now, deeply negative interest rates. And I'm going to explain how that works. But Ken Rogoff put out this editorial on May 4th, 2020, the case for deeply negative interest rates. And what by deeply negative, we mean -4, -5, -6 or more %. Here's another IMF working paper enabling deep negative rates to fight recession. So they're trying to think of ways, because interest rates are very close to zero right now in the U.S., and they're slightly negative in other parts of the world, like Europe and Japan. The idea is how can we act like complete crazy people and get interest rates even more negative? Now, the difficult thing about bringing about negative interest rates for policymakers is that who in the world would keep their money in a bank that paid a negative interest rate of 5%? So think about how this would work. You start off the year with $1,000 in your bank, and then because it is -5 interest rates, you end the year with only $950. So most people in a situation like that would just pull their money out of the bank, take the cash, keep it under their mattress, or they might just spend it. Now, the Fed wants you to spend it. This is a real way to stimulate the economy. It's a very perverse way of doing it, and it penalizes savers. But this is what negative interest rates are intended to do. And the difficult thing is to pull them off, because people will just pull their money out of the bank. But what if it were completely impossible to pull your money out of the bank because it was a completely digital currency? And this is what you would be able to achieve if you had a government cryptocurrency or FedCoin. And you could also give different interest rates to different people. So you could see a situation where one political party would control it such that the other members of the other political party who had of whom there were records of them voting electronically against them, maybe they would get a worse interest rate. Maybe investment bankers or central bankers, or if you work for the federal government, you would get a 1% interest rate, and everyone else would get a -5% interest rate. So the thing about programmable money, cryptocurrencies, FedCoin, is you'd be able to have this sort of targeted interest rates where you could decide maybe people outside the U.S. who are holding U.S. dollars would not be penalized. They would make 1%, but everyone else in the U.S. would, consumers, individuals, households, corporations, would earn a negative interest rate. So this is one thing that becomes possible with FedCoin. The next thing that it would make much easier for the government and for the Federal Reserve is economic stimulus. We saw the checks that came in the mail after COVID, at least for a significant percentage of the U.S. population. And the idea here is that they'd be able to do much more targeted economic stimulus. So you would have to spend your coins in maybe locally in your own city or in your own state. Maybe just you could spend it in Colorado or California, or you'd have to spend it domestically. You couldn't take it abroad. You'd have to spend it within the U.S. Or maybe you'd have to spend it within 4 weeks or 2 months or something like that, or the money would actually expire worthless. Now, this will be a great tool for what's called helicopter money, or UBI, or universal basic income, where the government basically prints up new money and gives it to people as to keep people quiet, to keep people in their homes from rioting, or to keep people from starving because inflation is so high and the grocery store prices keep going up. But the thing about programmable money is all of this suddenly becomes possible. Now, what is more sinister is also censorship becomes possible. If we don't like what you say or believe, maybe we pretend that you're plotting some plot against the government, but we don't really want to go to a court and provide evidence. So what we can do is we can just deactivate your coins. No one would ever know about it. No one would really be able to trace it. And this is obviously probably not something that would happen in the US today, but the way things are going, I could definitely see it happening in a couple years from now. And it could happen and we would never even know about it because the press or whatever would decide not to give a platform to whomever was complaining that their US digital dollars had been deactivated. So these are the three things: negative interest rates, censorship, and also very targeted economic stimulus. And you can see why the government would want to come up with its own FedCoin or government cryptocurrency to be able to have these tools, because these are very, very powerful tools. But there's a problem in the modern world, especially in the modern world of Bitcoin, which is that capital is always mobile. And in the older days, for example, in Soviet Russia or Nazi Germany, it was much more difficult for people to leave the country, especially if they had their money tied up in a local business or in a bank where perhaps their deposits could be frozen, or they had their money tied up in real estate and the currency was hyperinflating and they weren't able to get out. They weren't able to exchange their real estate for US dollars. They'd have to take Weimar Republic, Deutschmarks, whatever they were called. But now we have different technologies. And the best technology we have for moving money around and for storing value is Bitcoin. And what a lot of people don't realize is that you can buy citizenship all over the world. Now, this cannot be, is not always that cheap. Here's a famous example from St. Kitts and Nevis, who's been doing it for a long time. But you can basically buy citizenship in this country for, you either donate $150,000 to their growth fund, or you invest $400,000 or more into real estate. Now, for Bitcoiners, these are not going to be huge amounts of money, especially because I believe one Bitcoin is going to $1 million. And what's going to happen is there's going to be a worldwide competition for Bitcoiners and their capital. And what's going to happen when FedCoin comes out, especially if it becomes very oppressive, is all of a sudden Bitcoin, people wonder what the use case is. Well, here's a very clear use case: store of value and the ability to transmit it over distances. So it'd be very easy to leave the US with your Bitcoin just memorized in your head, your 12 seed words, go to St. Kitts, go somewhere else like this. And this will provide a sort of a release valve and a way to fight FedCoin and government cryptocurrencies. And we could see actually a very healthy competition worldwide where different economies in different countries compete for intellectual capital and for capital itself. And one thing I would point out to gold bugs is that it's going to be much more difficult to move around with your suitcase full of gold. Good luck putting this on an airplane and making it through TSA. So again, this is the argument for Bitcoin. And it's the argument for why FedCoin or government cryptocurrencies are not a threat to Bitcoin. They're not going to be competition. In fact, they're going to drive more people into Bitcoin as a place to hide, because FedCoin, just like the US dollar right now, the new US digital dollar will be centralized, it'll be printable, it'll have unlimited supply, and hence it will not be a good store of value. If you can just print more of something, it doesn't hold its value. So FedCoin, just like the current US dollar, will not be scarce. And as such, it's not a threat to Bitcoin. In fact, it would probably drive a lot of people out of gold and out of the US dollar into Bitcoin. And it would really enable capital to continue to be very mobile. Now, I hope this doesn't happen, but I would say that if you extrapolate the trends, the way the Federal Reserve's been behaving, the way the central bank's been behaving, and the way the federal government's been behaving, I think this is almost baked into the cake, and it's coming in the next few years. So make sure you're prepared. Make sure you think about what can happen here. In the digital world, things can change overnight. They can change extremely rapidly, as we've seen with COVID, and as we've seen with the rise of high tech and software and borderless companies, etc. Please hit the subscribe and like button if you found this video helpful. Hit that notification bell if you want to be notified when my next video is posted. And let me know your questions and comments in the comment section below. Thanks a lot for listening, and I'll see you in the next video.